Good morning. We have been for several weeks now in the midst of Lifeways Bible Studies for Life. The fall quarter being After God's Own Heart, a fresh look at the Ten Commandments. And so we've already had an opportunity to look at several of those. Today we'll be looking at the second commandment that deals with loving our neighbor as ourselves. Jesus made it very plain. There's two things that are very significant: loving God and loving your neighbor. That's really, on those hang the entire law and everything that has anything to do with that. And so when we begin to look at this, we're looking at, last week we looked at honoring parents. Today we are looking at honor life. And of course, the commandment that deals with that is thou shalt not kill. And so that's the way that we're looking at, the one that we're looking at today. Now, our lesson writer begins very significantly by saying most people acknowledge the value of human life. But then he also says, but we don't all agree on what that means or what it includes. And in that, he begins to emphasize different things at different ways that people view these kinds of things. We deal all the time on the news with what they talk about abortion and about unborn and all the things that deal with that. We also talk about those that are the most vulnerable, the elderly, those that have some kind of underlying condition and all kinds of things like that we talk about right now. Significantly, this commandment in the original language is only two words: kill not, or no, never kill, or a lot of different ways that it could be translated and said, but thou shalt not kill is the commandment that the sixth commandment. The term can certainly be defined, as our lesson writer puts it, as referring to unauthorized taking of human life. Now, I think it's a good idea for us to actually look at what this commandment does not forbid. This commandment does not forbid the killing of animals for food or for clothing. We recognize from Genesis, the 9th chapter and verse 3, that is something that can be done. And then it doesn't forbid killing in self-defense. Exodus 22:2 makes that very plain, that we have a right to defend ourselves and to prevent someone else from killing us, and the different things that have to do with that. It also does not speak about war in the sense that when there is a justified war, when war is of course it ought to be a last resort, but if it is the last resort and it's a necessary thing, there have been times when freedom needed to be defended, and as a result of that, our nation has been at war. Now, there are certainly different ideas and thoughts that go along with that, and there are those that see it in a different kind of light than that. But war was something that was spoken about a great many times in the Bible, and the circumstances that have to do with war. This also does not forbid capital punishment. Genesis 9:6 speaks about this, Exodus 21:12, and then 14-15, and all of it speaks about that a government has the right to defend its citizens, even to the point of capital punishment. Now, the meaning of the word kill, as we look at this particular thing, the way through the Bible speaks about it, it is the term used exclusively with only one exception in any sense of the word, as a reference to the malicious, intentional action to kill an innocent person. Premeditated murder. It speaks about murder. Now, it does use this word in one place where it speaks about when somebody accidentally kills someone else and then had to run to one of the cities of refuge and remain there until after the death of the high priest. So, you know, there's a number of things that have to do with that. But the reality is that when we speak about this, we speak about committing murder. And so basically it could say, thou shalt do no murder. But murder entails a great deal more than just the taking of human life, as Jesus made it very plain in Matthew, the 5th chapter, when he said, "You have heard that it was said of them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, and whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift." It plainly says that the way we need to do things is to recognize that forgiveness is in order, and that we should be a forgiving people. Because we have been forgiven so much by God, we ought to ourselves be ready to forgive. And so looking at that, we go through here and recognize the things that that our author was talking about. He takes us to another story that emphasizes the value of human life, and that story has to do with David and Saul. Now, you know the circumstances that surround David and Saul. Saul was the first king of Israel. Saul was very self-centered in a very realistic kind of way. Once he became king, he was very shy to begin with, but once he became king, he pretty much pushed himself forward in all kinds of ways, but he wasn't obedient to God, and he didn't live up to the standard that he should have as king, and as a result of it, he disobeyed a direct command from God, and in that sense lost his kingship. And so God had anointed David to be the next king, but Saul wanted his progeny to be the kings, and he wanted the future to be in his family, and so as a result of it, realizing that David was blessed by God, he chased after him on a number of occasions. This happens to be the second time that the event occurred that we're looking at in here. Not exactly the same, but very closely related, because David actually left Saul alive on at least two occasions that he could have taken his life, but he valued that life. And so we find that in this one in 1 Samuel 26, verses 7 to 11. It says, "So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said, Furthermore, as the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed, but I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is at his bolster and the cruse of water, and let us go." And so that was 7 through 11. We jump over to 22 to 25, and it says, "And David answered and said, Behold the king's spear, and let one of the young men come over and fetch it. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness, For the Lord deliver thee into my hand this today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Now, the circumstances were that Saul tried to get rid of David. He knew that David was anointed to take his place, and he chased after him over and over again, all over the country, one way or another. The first time when he came into a cave, David cut off a piece of his garment and showed it to him, and he left off from chasing after him at that point. And then this time, as David and his nephew went into the camp, 3,000 soldiers. Our lesson writer explains it this way, said generally the army is all surrounding, and the king himself would be right in the center where he would be in the safest place and that kind of thing. I don't know exactly how the camp was laid out, but in any event, David and Abishai went all the way into where Saul was at. They took the spear from next to him as he was laid there sleeping, and everybody else was asleep as well. And he left the camp, took the spear and Saul's water with him, so that they could see that he did not kill him when he could have. And all of these things were as a result of the fact that David saw Saul's life as being precious in his eyes and in the eyes of God, and that as God's anointed, as the one that God had made king over the land, he was not going to take his life. And so in that, Saul left off from chasing after David, but David didn't expect him to quit. He knew what the circumstances were, and so he said, God save my life alive. God protect me. Let the Lord protect me. He wasn't looking to go back with Saul, even though Saul invited him back at that point in time and called him his son and everything else. But Saul never really reached a point where he wasn't trying to get rid of David in one way or another. Saul was killed in a battle later on, and we recognize that he and Jonathan were both killed in the same battle. His eldest son, that was such a close friend to David in every sense. But all of these things tell us that God values life, and that every single life bears the stamp of God, because he said that man, when he created them male and female, that he created them in his image. And so the reality gives, life its value. As the lesson writer puts it, the truth ought to dictate not only how we view and treat ourselves, but also how we treat others. And in it, he speaks about the manner in which we look upon others, that we value others. He speaks about the fact that there should be no hatred, no discrimination, no treating others in any way that is less than respectful and honorable. And certainly in speaking about that, he speaks about the unborn, and where life begins, and those kinds of things that deal with that. And so thou shalt not kill. You can kill a person's reputation. You can take away his ability to live, and all of those things, and you can do a number of things that Jesus describes as sinful and wrong, even if you do not take another person's life in the sense that the world would call it murder. But if you murder his reputation, if you murder his ability to make a living, if you take away those kinds of things, then you've broken this commandment. Whether or not, even, and Jesus makes it plain, even if it's in your mind, if it's in your heart to kill, then to harm or to hurt someone else, that you're being disobedient to this commandment. And who knows better than the author? The reality is that we are to love God first and foremost in our life, and we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. And on this hangs the law, all of the law. So we'll continue to look at those things that have to do with loving our neighbor as ourselves as we go to the next one. Thanks for joining me today. I just want to mention that at Stony Run Baptist Church we'll be having service at 11 o'clock today, Lord willing, and then of course at 6 o'clock tonight as well. And we'd love to see you there or hear from you at stonyrunbaptist@gmail.com. We invite you to go to our YouTube channel, which is Stony Run Baptist at YouTube, and you can go through all of the lessons or the messages that are preached, and so we'd love to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.